Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Pluxee Select. It's our stated purpose at Pluxee to help open up a world of opportunities for all our stakeholders. And as you're aware, what we strive to do each day is to help you enjoy more of what really matters in your lives. Every day we come to work, doing multiple things to help you achieve these objectives. I'll just take a few examples in this area of what are things we've been doing. As you're aware, we today offer a world-class employee benefits platform, and we're striving each day to make that platform better and better and improve your employee experience. Every day, through our extensive merchant partner network in India, we bring you offers which can help you boost your purchasing power and make the employee benefits in your hand multiply. And finally, we also strive to bring you topics that are of interest to you, specifically in the health and well-being area. As you would be aware, every month we conduct a webinar for all our consumers like you and bring you speakers who can give you tips as to, from multiple topics in the health and well-being domain. What we also started last year is what we call Pluxee Select. With Pluxee Select, we've had the good fortune of bringing to you achievers from different walks of life to come and share their experiences with you, and for you to ask them questions. And the idea collectively is for all of us to get better as individuals. We've had the good fortune till date to host Saina Nehwal, our very own badminton champion, and our last guest was Ashwin Yardi, CEO of Capgemini India, who spoke to you on the topic of sustainability. Today, we bring to you another edition, and it's a great honor, right? Because our guest that we have with us today is someone really special. He belongs to the corporate world in India. He has 20 years of experience today, so there's a lot of learning, packed in there for all of us to benefit from. And he has extensive experience across investments or in the investing domain, consulting and technology, and he's worked both in India and the United States. So he has cross-cultural expertise also. He's none other than the CEO and co-founder of Magicpin. Again, no introductions required, but just to give you a scale of what Magicpin has achieved, Magicpin is India's first and largest hyperlocal savings super app. It is also the country's largest discovery and discount platform for the retail stores, and this includes a whole bunch of small local stores in neighborhoods like yours and mine, and these kirana stores, as we call them in India, are benefiting from the Magicpin revolution, if I may call it that. Today, Magicpin has the great honor of having more than 10 million members on its platform. That's a number that you need to let sink in, because it's already an achievement, and I think they've just started out in that sense. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor today to introduce to you and bring to you Anshoo Sharma, co-founder and CEO of Magicpin. Before I hand it to Anshoo, just a quick background before I allow him to speak further. Anshoo is a graduate from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Before founding or starting Magicpin, he's worked with Lightspeed India. I think, in fact, he was one of the first employees. So wherever Lightspeed India is today, I'm sure you played a great role in helping achieve those heights. And he also has worked with Bain & Company in the consulting space for 4 years. So Anshu, warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us today. And I hand it to you now.
Harish, thank you so much for such a warm introduction, and it is my pleasure to be here as your guest, and especially also as a partner that we've been able to become with each other over the last years. So I thought about what should we spend time on, and I've put together an agenda which would cover broadly 4 areas. And if we have questions, welcome to take those alongside. I thought I'd start with just my journey. And while Harish mentioned some of the names there, but how did I transition through some of those? What did it take for me to finally get started with Magicpin? It took 15 years, by the way. But what happened in those 15 years of what I did and with that, how I got to that answer. And I'll talk a little bit about Magicpin itself and what we set out to do and what we've become, but also perhaps a few turning points within that journey. The objective of the session was to talk about business strategies, right? And some of those pieces got unraveled as we were building. But if I look back, there is of course more clarity around these were some of the definitional points. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit about building businesses is a product of building teams. So what does it take to build high performance teams, right? I thought these would be interesting areas. It makes it personal enough, but at the same time valuable enough for someone to take it and apply in other areas. And Harish, feel free to stop me, ask me questions on your behalf or on the audience's behalf. Okay, so I thought I'll use a few slides such that some of this becomes easier. Let me share my screen and please tell me if you're able to see my screen as I do that. My screen visible now?
It's just coming up.
Okay.
Yes, it's here.
Okay, good. Okay, let me fix this. Give me a second. Yeah. Okay, I assume my screen continues to be visible. So I spoke of these four areas, right, that we'll talk about. I'll start with the first one. So some of the logos there, Reish has already spoken of. And as I said, right, the first thing to see on this is that from 2001, and that dates me, that's when I started to work, just graduated out of Delhi University, and in my first job, to around 15 years from them. Actually, more than that, slightly, one more year, 16th year. I started at the end of 2015. What happened within that? I'll talk a little bit about that. So as I was graduating, a lot was being built in technology. This is 2001 still, huh? So no e-commerce yet happening in India. Product companies in India were pretty close to zero. There was product work being done in a few companies, but those are more of enterprise products being built for a global audience. Hughes was one of those companies, and we were building protocol stack. So I joined them, and I graduated in computer science. Hughes was a dream company when I joined, and the 2 years that I was there, I thoroughly enjoyed just building things from scratch. At that point, a lot of voice over IP converged networks were being built, and I was part of that. Filed a patent while I was there, and the rush of saying I can build something that gets used, that coming out of college was the first satisfaction that I had. But with anything new that excites you over a period, you start to get saturated. And that's what happened. So even though I learned a lot, we built products that were getting used. I had this quest for what next. And I had been throughout at my home. That was a luxury which I did not realize. You don't realize the good things you have in your life. You take them for granted. So I studied in Delhi, was in Gurgaon. I went on to find a job in a well-known company doing very well at that point in time called Motorola in Bangalore. And the first thing I realized, and there was no reason for me to go other than the fact that I just wanted to explore more. And I realized when I got to Bangalore, the first thing was that you have to find food 3 times in a day. Something as simple as that you take for granted. And then over a period, I got used to it. But by the time I was done with my year at Motorola, this quest of new continued to remain. And I was so far an engineer who would build things, who would code, and primarily back-end products, so deep inside technology. And I had seen enough, but had zero understanding of business. And for lack of something more challenging, I went through CAT, got into Ahmedabad, and it was new. The newness is what excited me. But one thing which became very clear and interesting in that period is that I started to see the profit and loss account in various things. I started to understand what is referred to as unit economics from not just a business, but a sabji wala or a thela wala. I finally started to understand, okay, this is how money is made. This is how they run their lives. This is what a crore means. This is what 100 crore means, right? So that entire realization was very new. And I continued to go slow through all of that. So 2001, by the time I graduated from Ahmedabad, it was 2006. And 2006 was still a very interesting period. Not enough technology product startups in India yet. Actually, none. Um, but Bain was a company that was getting set up in India. Actually, not yet set up in India. So I had joined Bain in Boston at that point in time. Bain is a management consulting firm, and while graduating, it was one of the top tier companies to go to in campus. I joined Bain in Boston, and a fair bit of learning again, but this time around building businesses. So before this, I had just built technology and products, but post MBA, I got to actually understand how do you go and build a business, early stages, late stages. And Bain had a lot of late stage clients, and I did a lot of work in private equity while at Bain, where private equity firms were doing diligence on various companies that they could invest in, which were early. So, getting to a quick answer on this is what matters for this company to be good investment, and how do you go about getting your head around that? So that was an interesting phase. I spent close to 4 years at Bain. Initially, as I said, in Boston, but then Bain was getting set up in India, and that was an exciting part for me to say being part of an early stage company, though well established, but 10 years behind the other two management consulting firms in India, and trying to build something interesting. That was I'd say a very foundational experience for me. And all of the Bain folks I am still close with. In fact, Zomato came out of that cohort. Delivery came out of that cohort. Both of these teams had a bunch of Bain folks who went on to build high quality companies subsequently. And what was common was people who believe in themselves and trying to hit above their weight class, saying that this is a market where something new can be done. And I still did not know what. So I did not go out to start any company at that point in time. Instead, I joined Lightspeed. Lightspeed is a venture capital firm. And 2009, venture itself was very new in India. Flipkart had not yet been invested. And I joined them late 2009. I was the second person, Harish, as you said, at that point in time, to have joined a venture capital firm. People, as I was leaving Bain, saying, "Why are you doing? It's a big risk." But to me, being able to get close to people who are building companies was a privilege, was very exciting. And Lightspeed itself, and the gentleman who was running it, Bejul Sumaya, who now runs Lightspeed globally, his point was that, hey, we are also a startup in the business of investing. So I'm joining a startup whose job is to invest, but it's still that early stage rush, and you getting to build things. So that's what I went in thinking I'll get closer to knowing what I'll finally build. But I got completely engrossed in building Lightspeed. I know the first company we invested in was a company called Indian Energy Exchange. It's an exchange that trades spot power. Um, Fairly large now. It listed publicly back in 2018 or so. And then Lightspeed went on to invest in many more firms, many large companies, which are, I'd say, in the startup ecosystem amongst the better known companies. But one thing which was common across all of the companies that we were looking in, and I created a slide just to show this, is that what made companies successful was these three pieces: that it's a leader in large market, or there is this large market where one can get in and you can disrupt it and become a leader. There are a bunch of people who are high quality, who are capable, passionate, and ambitious and want to do it. And our job was to bring capital to the first. And we kept looking, and there were 10 investments which I did while at Lightspeed. Many of them became successful, and that became the seed for me to get started. That gave me the confidence and the irrationalism. Starting something is irrational, right? But that gave me the confidence that it can be done over and over again in a repeatable fashion. This is a market, and that is in the context of Magicpin now, which I believe in. We are a bunch of folks, and we'll build a bunch of folks who can go and tap this market, and we raise capital along the way. I'll pause there, Harish, to make sure that I'm also of value. But that was the first part of what I wanted to share, how I got to finally starting Magic.
No, I think it's been great to till here. It's nice to also see what's behind it. And of course, you've been really humble to say you're hitting above your weight class, but because some of the things that you said you've been doing, and all the other folks that you spoke about coming out plain, I think are all in those sense early or first movers in their own space. So I think
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
a lot
Sure.
of
So I'll
interest.
continue then. Then at Magicpin, our starting point was, and we'd been diligencing this space and prospecting rather more than diligencing at light speed also, that retail is a massive market. 90% of retail, and at that point it was 95% of retail, but still 90% of retail is offline. But consumers are 100% online. What does that mean? It basically means that consumers are consuming content online, but when it comes to spending, they'd go offline and spend. And retailers cannot come online to do CPC, CPM campaigns for these consumers. So thus, there's a big divide between demand, which is sitting online, and consumption, which is going to happen offline. And that is what Magicpin does. We bring the local markets alive on the user's phone, as you described, like whether it is food, fashion, nightlife, entertainment, beauty, electronics. Like we bring all of these markets to life. And the uniqueness of what we do is that to a merchant, we are pay per conversion. I'll spend maybe a minute or two on just explaining what do we do, and then I'll which is to an extent valuable. But then I'll go to a little bit of what was foundational or definitional in our journey so far. That would make for better stories. But just stay with me for another minute or so while I just complete what we have evolved to. Our starting point is this merchant, right? Like I've put an example of Kunal, who runs Sanskriti Medicos in Lajpat here in Delhi. He's short on time, short on cash, can't run a sophisticated CRM or something, but knows that his customers are online. And today, if you look at, he's being hit by a bunch of solutions on the supply side: payments, accounts, logistics, credit, procurement, online storefronts. But there's no one who's going to him in a way that he'd like to and saying that I will drive demand to you. That example I gave, right? Consumers are online, but who's bringing these online customers to the offline world? And that is exactly what Magicpin does. We bring these users to this merchant and we charge this merchant if and when the customer goes to the merchant and he pays. Our stack to the merchant is that we would start with the basics of saying we'll get your store listed. A level above that, we would say, do this contract with us where if we drive 100 rupees of business on a blended basis, depends by category, we'll charge somewhere between, let's say, like 10% to 25% as fee for driving that business. A level above that, in certain merchants, we'd be able to catalog them, inventory, prices, pictures, description, such that they become more discoverable. And a level above that, finally, we'll enable home delivery also. To make it more clear, I just put a few screenshots on the screen. For example, on Magicpin, you can write white linen shirt, and we'll show you the merchants from around you where these shirts are available, offline merchants, and the price of those shirts. And then when you go and pay with Magicpin, instead of, let's say in this case, 100 rupees, you would have to pay 88 rupees. So it's something for the customer, which is discovery and savings, and something for the merchant, which is additional customers, and he pays only when we drive. And we're very interesting, which I'll cover later on our learning also, is that we first collect the money from the customer, we take our commission, and then we'll pay the merchant. It's a very simple thing, but actually a very critical thing. And then the same thing works across categories. You can search for Crocin and we'll find your garden pharmacy. But in this case, you can actually, the ad CTA will actually do the home delivery of this for you. Or food for that matter, right? You can look for biryani and we'll show you biryani. Of course, here in food category, there are bigger guys who are sitting. But when it comes to going out to these merchants, we would be the only ones who would be able to provide that. Or for that matter, entertainment. If you're looking for movies, like we'd give a 22% off on a PVR cinemas ticket right off the bat. So the idea is every time you're looking to go outside, start that journey with Magicpin. That is what we're doing. Now, of course, this is 8 years since we started. I'll take this shut the slides off for a second. I'm still visible, Harish, just to make sure.
Yes.
Right. So I'll just take the slides out for a second. I've explained what we are and what we've evolved to. But let me start by telling you the initial days of our journey. So in fact, in our first week, we wanted to test, and we were coming in as business people. So we needed to figure out whether the model works or not. And our whole concept is based on that I know the users so well because of wherever they go and spend. I have data on this guy, and thus I can recommend a local option which someone else cannot. So our model was that send us your shopping receipts, and basis those receipts, we would give you points with which you can go to local merchants around you and save on those merchants. I gave you the kind of merchants you can give examples just now on that, right? But we had to first understand who this user is, where do they go. Today, we are more sophisticated. We ask user to let us read their SMS and basis that understand their organic spend and then recommend more places that they can go to. But we had to figure out what to do. So what we did is we said to people, we don't have an app yet, but take out your WhatsApp. Here is the phone number. On this phone number, send a selfie and a picture of your bill. And we wanted to see would people share this with us. And if you do, then we would, to gratify you, recharge your phone. Oh, that thing was like great. It started to blow up, right? In the first day itself, we started to see hundreds of people. And we did this in Delhi University North Campus area. People started to do that, right? And that number grew from 100 to 500 to 1000 on a daily basis. It just kept growing because, and we realized that people have no issues around sharing information as long as they are getting gratified in a relevant way for that. And that became the bedrock of what Magicpin is, because basis the receipts that we were getting, we now could understand who are the merchants that are relevant in this market. And we could, on from the receipt, read the phone numbers, the phone number, if it's not there, the tax ID, the GST number. We could reverse engineer the GST into a phone number, given the publicly available information, send a WhatsApp on that, and say to the merchant that you're ranked number 7 in your neighborhood. And you see the local peers around you who are ahead of you in this market. And if you want to work with us, if you want us to take you up on this leaderboard, then we are happy to do that. You just need to start the relationship with us where you don't need to pay anything upfront, but as the customer comes and pays us, we'll then go out to pay. So this entire model of saying, let's start with nothing, literally no app, nothing, but let's just test if people would be willing to give us information. And we kind of hacked at that point, WhatsApp did not have a business account. So we had to patch the WhatsApp through some hacks into a fresh desk that we did. We could get that whole thing to run up. But that kind of created a unique model for us to scale up. We had a bunch of learnings along the way also. Like one very basic thing in hindsight, but we learned is initially we were trying to go to the merchant and show them the receipt that so many of our customers came to your store. So you agreed on these commercials with us. There's a total they've spent. Why don't you pay us this? And fairly obvious, they said, get lost. Not gonna happen. So we then realized that, okay, unless the customer is first paying us, this model is not going to work. Then, of course, once we learned that, then all the points were usable only on Magicpin, and the customer uses those points to save, just like you saw. But then we settled with the merchant. Then the model started to work because now the merchants had an understanding, no conversation around attribution. And that's what you realize in India, right? Cash is king. If you are giving the cash, sure, right? Merchant will talk to you. But if you want to give a marketing service and say, like, I did this, then you'd die trying to collect the worth of the paper contract you signed. Of course, fairly straightforward thing, but you learn as you go. One more interesting turning point in Magicpin's journey was during COVID. Our whole business was built around going out. So when COVID happened, and I remember this note I sent to my board in the 16th of March of 2020, just a few days before lockdown happened, that we are going to have the best month for the year ever. And then the world turned, and our business came to zero, like nothing. And we were in a fundraise mode, so we were almost out of capital. And fortunately, no one had anything else to do also. So people got into survival mode, and we said we're going to make this work. We still have our customers, we still have our merchants, and while they can't go out and meet each other, but if we enable home delivery, that is powerful. That is something that can. So that loop forced us to build what is now a very sophisticated stack around home delivery. We would do 100,000 orders in a day now, and we do home delivery not just for our own users, not just via ONDC, which I can talk about if we have the interest, but we are also going to, let's say, a Burger King, Pizza Hut, or a Fasos, where their own demand gen, we are saying we have the logistics infra without having any rider of our own. In real time, we would take the order, pass it on to Danzo, Shadowfax, Raptor, LoadShare, and then be able to build a service that would provide very high reliability and quality to the customers of any of these platforms. I know we have limited time, right? So I'll take a pause there. But the fact that we could build home delivery gave us an opportunity to have a second life there, and that finally, even when the COVID receded, ONDC came in and the entire delivery engine became a new engine for the business. And now we have offline and delivery both kind of running in parallel. And that was something which added a lot more base to what we are doing. There is another story perhaps around that, around how we somehow pulled together capital to get through that phase also. But Harish, I'll pause there. I've covered, I'd say, two of the three things I wanted to. I'd let you guide me if you'd want me to cover the piece around building high performance teams, or we can open for Q&A also.
So probably just to mix it up a little bit, Anshoo, I think the part is of real interest. I think it's something that many people, including I, like to really hear from you. But just probably in the interest of the flow, I'll ask you a few questions. Just pertaining to what you just spoke upon. So first question, it has two parts to it. But so when you started Magicpin, what did you see as your biggest opportunity? And I think you spoke about one, but is that it, or do you identify something else as the biggest challenge that you saw in offline retail?
Yeah, Harish, I think I just maybe reiterate what I said earlier, because I still believe it's true that Indian retailers are the lifeblood of our country. Generations of them, right? Their relatives, etc. Like if you think about, I took that last particular example, right? Generations of these retailers have been serving our country. Organized retail came. Everyone said organized retail will eat the small retail. Nothing happened. These guys stood strong. Like online came. Everyone said nothing happened, right? But people are online, and these retailers are strong. Enabling them to participate in our fast growing online economy is the opportunity that, and not just like we are doing it out of any interest which is beyond the business opportunity, but it's truly serving this community, which we believe is the right way to create significant value for consumers, retailers, and ourselves in the process. So I believe if I now look forward, right, I think even if I look at India 10 years from now, I believe that we are long on the local retailer ecosystem in our country, and being able to enable them to serve this new age of customer is where so much more color can be brought. We have this vertically integrated online economy, which would have warehouses, dark stores, inventory, everything, right? But the local retailer is not going to go anywhere, because as humans, we want to go out and experience certain things, right? We are a lot more about lifestyle experiences. You don't want to go out and watch a movie, right? Or like do shopping before you actually go and watch the movie, and eat when you feel hungry going from one store to another. But there needs to be a digital counterpart to that offline journey. And that is what we are building, being the assist and the companion for users in that. And merchants want that to exist. And that's why we partner with them to make that.
And as you set out to solve this this humongous challenge in that sense, your biggest challenge from the offline retail space, that anything that you can think of?
Yeah. No, as I said, right, like to start a company, you need to be irrational. Like you have to be foolish enough to attempt to start one. And I'd say we did not realize how hard it is to actually go out and execute on this vision. It's not like software company. Even software companies have their own set of challenges. We have to build the software and the technology, but being able to aggregate merchants And such a vast base of merchants and being able to add value to them is non-trivial. What we finally found as we iterated through our model is that the heart of our business is actually a locality. It is a small 2 kilometer radius area. It can be Connaught Place in Delhi or Powai in Mumbai or HSR in the Bangalore city, where we have enough users, we have enough merchants, and then magic starts to happen. Because users start to use the app to find merchants, merchants look towards the app to create offers or their content through which they can bring in more customers. That is how we cracked this model and said, while there are so many merchants, we don't need to go and get everyone on first day. We just need to make that small local market work. And each of these small local markets is probably worth hundreds of crores, right? They're deep, they're very deep. So the hardness of the problem had the solution lying within itself, which was to say, go local, really micro, and then solve the problem.
I think it's a very different approach. I see one audience question related to what you say, which probably I'll ask you now. And the question is from Bhushan Arora. He asks, for Magicpin, have you seen that to be more potential in metro cities, or do you see more of the potential coming from tier 2/tier 3 cities?
So we are more biased towards density. Density is, of course, in bigger cities. So I would say now dense regions exist in smaller cities also. But on that spectrum, as the question was asked, we would lean more towards bigger cities. But even smaller cities, right? And like, let's say Mysore is not a small city, but Mysore would have enough 10 hubs within itself where Magicpin would be relevant. So the answer lies in having enough dense pockets where we can exist, and then we can keep going deeper with it.
I think it's nice that you're not giving the more straightforward answers. It's one can make out that it's more cut on the edge of the experience that you had, because you're talking about targeting and not being try to have a one size fits all answer. I think the next part that you'll be touching upon is more on the team building. So probably I'll just go on the few more on the business questions, if I may. And on the attracting investments bit, how did you go about that, and something you'd like to share from that?
Yeah, and I did that for 6 years. I spoke of that one slide which I showed is my learning on that high quality teams which are going after large opportunities is what capital follows. And the flavor will keep changing of what those large opportunities are. Whether top line matters or bottom line matters, right? Sometimes growth will matter, sometimes cash burn will matter, right? That will keep changing. But what will always remain true is high quality teams, and thus high quality teams which are figuring out the best market. They'll iterate a little bit. So as an investor, you might want to time it right. But as someone, if you're looking to build, then the best time to start is to start. And I started off by saying that it took me 15 years to find that confidence. But raising capital is about having that belief and then continuing to work on that idea, improving it, moving forward, and along the way you'd find partners. I think people come from different backgrounds. And I'd say if someone is already in such a company, then there can be no better way to learn. You want to raise capital, be in a company that has raised capital, because then you see how you're solving for things. If you are not yet in a company that has raised capital and you want to raise capital, then a better path might be to first go to a company where you understand how this flow is happening, and then you can build.
Very practical advice. I'm going to take one more question because I like this. I know there's no straightforward answer to this, but I was hearing an interview sometime back with Jeff Bezos, and he touched upon it. So it'd be nice to have an interact. So Dattatreya asks, how did you get conviction in your idea when you started Magicpin?
Yeah. I think it's I say now in a simple way what I said, right? That retail is all offline and users are all online. So someone needs to connect the dots, right? Easier to say it, and it is to do with now years of confidence that I have on building this model. When you start, I think it's got to be linked to some personal experience that you have, because of which you believe in that market, right? You might have that problem of your own, or someone else might have that problem, but that is the way that you have conviction to be, and it's important to be stupid enough to start. You still have to be rational. You can never like dot all the I's and cross all the T's. No, you cannot, right? But for you to become irrational enough, I think it needs to be personal for you to say, I'm going to make this happen.
So a lot of it is based on personal experience and what you've seen upfront and you've experienced. So
yeah. As an investor also, right? Like I would always want to understand, why is this problem special to this entrepreneur, right? What viewpoint do they have? And it's not that, like, you can, if you start digging a problem, so you can acquire that experience. It's not that you can't, right? But it needs to come from that depth.
So couple of more questions. One is, any secret mantra that you have, or secret sauce? I'm sure a lot of people are looking for it, and there's no one secret sauce to it. But any secret mantra, to figure out the consumer of today's day and age. Anything that's special that you figured out to say, okay, this is what the consumer is about. This is something you must offer them, whatever you're doing. Anything that you'd like to share?
Again, I think the truisms that you ask for, right, they're hard to find. But what, like, common pieces, I'd just say, like, the consumers are unforgiving. They've always been, especially in India. We want the best service, very rightfully so, at the least price, with the highest convenience, right? Like, all of those things need to happen together. Where I feel, and if I look back at my own journey also, right, at Magicpin as well, where I think we can do better as people who are part of building these organizations is to overlay our unique strength or position in being able to deliver that proposition. Like, consumers are exposed to the best in the world, right? They're all using world-class products now. So anything less than the best is not going to work. But what is it that, as a company, I can do better than anyone else? Why will I have that edge in being better? And taking a very, and even if at the start I do not, right? But taking a very conscious strategic call to say, I'm going to be best at it and I'll keep getting better at it. And that's why what the consumer will have for me will be unparalleled. I think that's very, very important. Otherwise, it's a tough market. Trying to play someone else's game, like, it's always going to be very hard.
There's a question, Anshoo, that there's a lot of parts to it. There are a lot of questions, and I can see a lot of people complimenting you on what you started, and they're trying to ask also a lot of aspects. So I just have to be sorry. I just have to be pick and choose from this lot. But there's a question of someone. He says that she says that I'm in my mid-30s and I'd like to start up, but in today's day and age, it's scary. That seeing all these startups that are there. So do you have advice to someone who's trying to start something on their own, and does age matter?
Yeah. No, I don't think age matters. It's but I'd always advise start sooner. That's what I'd advise. I already I think answered this question. Join a startup. That's the best way. Let me go to that piece I was trying to talk about, right? And there's no slide for it, which is building high performance teams, right? See, and I'll connect it back. That we would often say that, that 2x2 of capability and willingness, right? Good, smart, capable people who would work hard would be successful. That's true, right? But there's a missing vector on that 2x2, which is the third dimension, which is ambition, which can be said in many different ways, right? Which is the ability to take risk, which is wanting something to happen and then going out of your way. And what that third vector brings is an alignment which can never be matched by just hard work and capability. And our education system actually doesn't like train for that, because you can be successful without that too, right? You can work hard, score well, you're smart. Even, for example, I'd say, and my erstwhile employees, right? Like, for example, consulting firms, right? Like you don't need to take risk. You can keep getting better and you get paid well to do that, right? But to create disproportionate impact, you have to have an ambition, and to have an ambition, you need to go and take risk, right? So partly this question around when should I start up, is that there is an ambition, there's a latent ambition, but you need to act on it, right? You need to go out. Now, like taking risk doesn't mean that, jump off a 10-storied building, right? You're not going to fly, right? But it means starting to take actions to come closer. I'd say the more the appetite, the smarter you can navigate that. I first went from going from consulting to investing to starting. And I found that finally building is what I enjoy, what I like doing. And now there are many more avenues. That long path is probably not required, right? Which I took. But there are enough people around you who are building, right? The startups, well-funded startups who are building. Being part of one of those teams is a great way to come close to building your own conviction on starting. You would learn domain, you would learn how to manage risk, you'd learn how to grow while improving the business, right? So I think that is a great opportunity now for someone to go in. And the interesting part is that even that, it pays you well. It could pay you well in terms of stock options as well. So not just when you start a company and you create value through that, but by participating in the stock options program, which most of the startups do, I would say that creates another, if one believes in it, creates another very big opportunity for one to go in. But so I've answered the question, but the more important takeaway, at least I wanted to bring out, was to say that in any setup, whether you are starting a company or you're in an organization which is trying to break out, keeping the ambition which is aligned with the company's ambition, being able to take risk in that environment, encouraging others to do that, right? In addition to working hard and being smart, that creates disruption. If you ask me what makes us successful as a team, I'd say that there are enough people who are saying that I'll take this risk. We'll find a way to make this happen, and we might fail in doing that, but that is okay. But not attempting it is much worse, right? And the more that culture seeps into the organization, then the organization becomes successful also.
So I think there's one interesting question, and it touches on Magicpin. So I'd like to ask you that. And it's from Shomik Roy. He asks, does Magicpin require any behavioral change from the offline retailers? And what commitment is needed from them? There's a third part. What is the incentive that retains them, that you answered already? So just the first two, I think. Is any behavioral change required? And what commitment as a company do you require from these retailer partners that you have?
So I think with all the digitization and digital payments, etc., we no longer are requiring the retailers to make any behavioral shift. The customer comes into the shop, pays with Magicpin. It might be a gift card or a voucher, or just directly what we call Magic Pay, just like Paytm, PhonePe, any of GPay, any of those work. We also work on that. So that flow is seamless for the merchant. On the other side, around our expectations, we would have an arrangement with the merchant, which is to say, if you drive 100 rupees of business, we'll charge somewhere like, depending on the category, as I said, might be 10, might be 20, some cases higher, as our fee for driving. But you'll have to pay it only if and when we drive the business. And because the customer pays us and then we pay the merchant, we are able to settle that in the flow of the money itself. So that's the business model on which we operate. So whatever we get from the merchant, we pass on some of that as an incentive for the customer to transact through us, and we keep some of that with us as the cost of doing business.
I think, thanks. In the very unique way that you answered this, I saw a lot of questions around this area. I think you've pretty much, hit multiple hits with one arrow. There's one question on starting up. It says, how can businesses effectively, what are the common mistakes made by businesses that hinder their success, and how can these be avoided? Are there any common ones that you can think of?
I think we touched upon some of them, right? In knowing the customer well, and in knowing what do we as a startup or a business bring to the table to be able to serve that customer better than anyone else. Right? I think we touched upon that area. I'd say a lot of times not enough thought goes into these areas. And then you realize you lose time, you lose money, your own investors and so on, right? But it's fairly basic, right? But it's just hard to find time to think of these basics in the rush of the
So I'd also like to look at the personal side of you, Anshu, and there are a few questions there. But I'd like to ask one final one from Naveen Kumar on starting up, etc. Probably two questions, one from me and one from the audience I'm taking right now. And this one, there are two parts to it, but I'll only ask you the second part. Is there a right time to seek funds, and how do you know it's the right time to go looking for funds as a startup founder?
I think all times are right times. As a founder who needs capital, capital is raw material into building the business, right? We need raw material, right? So all the times are right. I think what you can do is stage it depending on the nature of the investor. The good thing now is India has many pools of capital, starting with very just small friends and family to angels, and a lot of people have also created wealth who are looking to invest back as well. So I'd say early stages of capital is a lot more available. I'd say growth and growth plus is where the bar just becomes very high, especially in the current environment. But there is enough that's happening there too. And by the time you're there anyway, many of the fundamental things are taken care of. So from the perspective of early stage, I'd say all the time is a good time, and just spending more time with the kind of investor who's suited for this stage is a better use of figuring out where to go and talk first.
Thanks. One last question on the business side, and I'll be amiss if I don't ask you this. This is an area where Pluxee is partnering with you, but personally, what do you make out of this ONDC revolution, if I may call it that? Do you see it as a game changer? And if in that area, what made you join ONDC? Because you were one of the first movers, one of the first fund companies to come on board.
Yeah. No, I actually had kept a slide for that. I'll just
Yeah,
put
that's
that up
great. Yeah,
quickly.
sure.
Might make it easier. And ONDC, but the name itself, right? Like Open Network for Digital Commerce. They don't make it easy for people to get what they're doing. Uh, so can you see my screen now?
Yeah, it's come up. Yes.
Right. Okay, good. So you see, ONDC is Open Network for Digital Commerce first, right? And it's a very revolutionary idea. And I think we also understood the gravity of what it can become over a period. I remember our first conversation with ONDC, and that was with Koshi, the gentleman who has been running that entire initiative, was early in 23. And he said, it seems you are trying to bring business to local merchants, and we would want that to happen for you, not just from your own users, but many other users. There are many more demand side apps that exist in the country, and thus we said, okay, sure, why not? Why don't we go and plug our merchant partners? We've got lakhs of them into ONDC. And we did that. We put an intern on the job who did this for like 2-3 months. And then what? Nothing happened then. The reason nothing happened is because the demand side journey itself is very unique. Um, if I put like 100 biryani merchants in Bombay on Paytm, that behavior doesn't exist, and Paytm has not built the interface either in a way that it can happen. So then we realized what we needed to do was to put a SaaS solution of kind, a Shopify-like solution on our buyer apps, which is, for example, Paytm and then Ola. So we kind of gave them a SaaS solution where they could give us a small logo on their home screen. And when that logo is clicked, then the page you're landing on is Magicpin, where we do the front-end rendering also. And then orders from these buyer apps, as ONDC ecosystem calls them, Paytm, Ola, PhonePe, Tata Neu is going live soon. They've been in the works, and more of these apps are going live. Basically, if you and we do everything at the back end. Once the order comes, and we are the largest guys on some of the categories at least, we would send the order to the merchant, get the merchant to keep it ready, assign our rider. That rider will go and pick it up and deliver to the, let's say in this case, a PhonePe, Ola, or a Paytm's customer. So our capability of understanding how the local merchant transactions work we could bring that to ONDC. ONDC, of course, is going to go to non-local merchants also. It's going to go to e-commerce. It's going to go into, mobility. It's doing other categories also. But I'm explaining the retail part of it, and especially the local part of it. And once that happened, what you see on the right side, we started to see this jump of traffic just doubling in a very short period. And this growth has continued to come in. And I believe it's possible to see a future now where you say, well, any large usage app, it could be a gaming app. You can put a logo there and it'll become commerce ready. So it's what that does finally for the merchant. I'll stop sharing my screen. What that does finally for the merchant is that they are not dependent on just a couple of demand side apps in that area. Otherwise, in e-commerce, you'd find Flipkart, Amazon. In mobility, you'd have Uber, Ola. In food, there'd be Zomato, Swiggy. But now the merchant has, in a way, access to many, many users over many other platforms that exist at the same time. And that is something, it's like BizDev on APIs, right? And for Magicpin also, it's a great thing because I don't need to go and do tie-ups one by one with the large guys, right? There's a standard interface, anyone can plug in, we can help them to plug in, and then they can start to work. So I think the potential of what this can do is fairly like transforming, and we should see this evolve over the next few years as it goes.
Great. I think again an area where Magicpin has been an early, early participant, and it's great that Pluxee is getting to partner with you. So the last few minutes, Anshu, I'd like to ask you a few questions from the personal side of things. And the first one, of course, I can see a lot of questions about people asking you multiple things, but first one is about it's tough job you're doing, and you've seen success across life as a professional, but also then as a CEO and a co-founder. Is there a principle that you've been following since your early days, Anshu? And would you like to share anything like that you have in mind?
Yeah, I think one thing which gives it's like devoting yourself completely to a you can call it a mission, right? Which is building a company, serving a client, right? Is how you create disproportionate value. And the ability to devote yourself to a cause comes from A, believing in it, and B, the process itself of doing the work being satisfying. You can't put in disproportionate effort to wait one day. You would feel that, okay, I'm now is my payday on it, right? Now I'll get all my gratification. And I think that's been the consistent story, right? Every day working with high quality people, improving the solution we've got for our partners, whether it's customers, merchants, other ecosystem members, right? And moving forward on that. That giving the satisfaction to go back next day and reinvesting again, right? And that I would say is the bedrock of what makes it possible to devote yourself to something. And if being able to do that while being in the company of high quality people, I'd say is the second piece, who are ambitious, who are going for big outcomes. They're capable, hardworking, right? But beyond that, they're all seeing that same dream and somehow faltering, but continuing to move forward on that. And the third piece I'd say is being very, and that comes from a lot of training. As I said, right, I started much later. So the everything being measured. Finally, numbers are only modeling of the real world. Like P&L is also that of the amount of value you are creating, right? Profits are that, right? The value you've created for everyone, and you get to keep some of it. But being very objective on that, whatever part of the organization that you're working with, saying this is my goal, right? 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, which can be then broken down into monthly, weekly, daily. In some cases, we measure hourly also, right? But being able to say the effort I'm doing, this is how I'll measure it. And I'd say the combination of all of these and enough people being aligned together to doing this and building forward is what I'd say has made it very satisfying, the journey itself beyond the outcome we've got.
Thanks. And sure, as when you were growing up, in your formative years or days, did you have someone that you looked up to or want to emulate? Could be your mother, father, or someone from some other walk of life. But Who has been your biggest inspiration?
I think it's been a constant learning process, right? I think those role models have continued to evolve. I'd say growing up, perhaps sports was the and cricket especially, right? Like the icons of our cricketing world, right? And I've grown up in that generation where couple of days was going out, Sachin was coming in, but that greatness, right, of what you can do. I'd say that. But then, as I've evolved now, right, I'd say I have a lot of respect for people who've gone out to build high quality businesses. Building business in India is tough. A lot of friction, a lot of value orientedness all around. Being able to create a successful high quality business, leave aside tech or non tech, right? I have a lot of respect for people who've done that and done that well, and there are enough of those, right? Say, starting from someone like Sanjeev Chandani at InfoEdge to more uh, subsequently Sridhar Vembu, who built Zoho, continues to build that out, right? We are using Zoho for that matter, right? Going from there to the more recent, right? Like Zomato, the way they are killing it now. They took a lot of money to get there, but the quality of the product, the experience that they provide, and I'm fortunate to have them as our investors too. But these are all, in a way, people who've shown how value is built, how quality is built, and as you keep improving, and we hope that we are on a similar path to creating a platform as Magicpin, which is long lasting and thriving.
And probably my final question, Anshu, to you of today's session, and I'll pick up from what you just said. You said, building a business or running one in India is, of course, is a task that really requires a lot of effort. So there's, and I saw also one of our consumers past ask the same question. All of these things and your day-to-day pressures, they take a toll on you. So how do you manage stress? How do you manage all these challenges that you face on a day in day out basis? How do you ensure this, as our friend here asked you, how do you ensure this doesn't take a toll on you?
No, I think I answered that. If your work gives you satisfaction in the day, then you can come back and then keep going at it. Yeah, there are of course tough days, right? But I'm not waiting for like all of this to add up to something. It's adding up every day as a
So finding satisfaction in what you do is the secret to ensuring it doesn't take a toll, and there's something to look forward to, if not today, of course, then tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think a very good reference frame on this is Japanese ikigai, right? Like they talk about.
Yeah. So I know there's a minute or something left, but I would not be able to deliver my thank you note to you or thank you note to you. So I'll call it here, but it's been a great session, and I can see a lot of comments also talking about how you've opened up and how you really have structured this conversation for all of us to help understand about, of course, your career progression, Magicpin, the future of retail, etc., and consumers in India. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing, taking our time and sharing so much about different topics. And so it's a lot of gratitude there, and for all of you who joined us today, thanks a lot for taking out time. It's been I hope you found a lot of value through the session, and I really enjoyed this personally, and I'm sure all of you enjoyed listening to Anshu. So Anshu, thank you. And if you want to say anything finally, I leave the floor to you.
No, thank you so much, Harish. It was a pleasure speaking to you and answering some of the questions from you and the audience. Thank you for having me here, and I look forward to being of help to you and the Pluxee community.
Great. Thanks a lot, Chu. That's all that we have here on this edition of Pluxee Select. And until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks.